Commander Vorth, mandibles clicked in what his species considered profound satisfaction as he stared at the containment pod. Inside, suspended in biogel, floated what would either be the greatest weapon in Kalari military history or the most expensive mistake ever made. The human specimen, designation Terra 7, bobbed gently in the amber fluid, completely unconscious and blissfully unaware that his DNA was about to revolutionize galactic warfare. "Status report, Dr. Nexus," Vorth commanded, his 4 eyes never leaving the prize. The chief geneticist's tentacles writhed nervously. "Never a good sign, sir. The preliminary scans are concerning. This human's genetic structure is unlike anything we have encountered. The muscle density readings are off our instruments, and the neural pathway complexity." She paused, her violet skin shifting to a worried shade of purple. "Sir, are we absolutely certain we want to proceed with the cloning process?" Vorth's laugh came out as a series of harsh clicks. "Doctor, this single human eliminated an entire squad of our best shock troopers with his bare hands, while injured. Do you understand what that means for our expansion into the Terran sector?" Of course, Vorth conveniently left out the part where their best shock troopers had been caught completely off guard, expecting to face primitive creatures with simple projectile weapons. The human's performance had been, well, let's just say it had required significant editing in the official reports. "Yes, sir, but the genetic markers indicate potential psychological instabilities that could what, Doctor?" Vorth's tone turned dangerously cold. "Could give us an unstoppable army, could finally put the Terran resistance in their place, could earn us both promotions that would make our offspring wealthy for generations." Dr. Nexus's tentacles stopped writhing. "Ah, yes. The universal motivator. Greed mixed with a healthy dose of career advancement." "Initiating cloning sequence now, Commander." The laboratory hummed to life with the distinctive whir of bioreplication technology. Banks of machinery that had cost more than most planetary defense budgets began their delicate work of copying, modifying, and enhancing human DNA. What could possibly go wrong? Vorth settled into his observation chair, already composing his victory speech to the High Council. In 72 hours they would have their first batch of human clones, loyal, programmable, and infinitely more manageable than the original. The irony was delicious. Humans would become the instrument of their own subjugation. "Sir," Dr. Nexus called out, her voice tight with concentration, "we are detecting some unusual activity in the neural development chambers. The clones' brain patterns are accelerated." "Define accelerated." "Well, typically our clones reach mental maturity in 48 hours. This one appears to be developing cognitive functions at triple the expected rate. The learning algorithms we have implanted are being absorbed and modified." Vorth's satisfaction dimmed slightly. "Modified how?" "I'm not entirely sure, sir. The clone seems to be rewriting its own programming code." "That should be impossible." A chill ran down Vorth's exoskeleton. In his experience, when scientists said something should be impossible, it usually meant they were about to discover just how possible it actually was. "Increase monitoring protocols," he ordered, "and double the loyalty conditioning sequences." "Sir, about those loyalty sequences, there's been another irregularity." Vorth's 4 eyes focused on the doctor with predatory intensity. "What kind of irregularity?" "The clone appears to be rejecting, not just passively, but actively countering each conditioning attempt with what can only be described as psychological warfare techniques." Now that was genuinely concerning. Vorth had seen the psychological profiles of captured humans. They were naturally suspicious, independently minded, and possessed an almost supernatural ability to resist mental conditioning. But this was supposed to be different. This was supposed to be controlled. "Show me." Dr. Nexus activated the neural monitoring display. Streams of data flowed across holographic screens, showing brain activity that pulsed and shifted like a living thing. Every time the loyalty programming attempted to establish itself, another pattern would emerge, stronger, more complex, and utterly hostile to outside control. "It's like the clone is learning to fight us from the inside." Dr. Nexus whispered. Each conditioning attempt makes it stronger, more resistant. Voth stared at the display, his mandibles clicking rapidly in what his subordinates had learned to recognize as either deep thought or impending violence. How long until physical maturation? At this accelerated rate, 18 hours, maybe less. And mental development? Sir, at current progression rates, the clone will achieve adult human intelligence in approximately 6 hours. After that, she gestured helplessly at the increasingly chaotic neural pattern. After that, I have no idea what we are dealing with. This was not going according to plan. Voth had built his career on careful calculation and risk management. The sight of those rebellious brain patterns made his tactical instincts scream warnings that his ambition desperately wanted to ignore. Implement Containment Protocol 7, he decided. Triple the physical restraints and prepare emergency termination sequences. Sir, with respect, if we terminate this clone, we lose our only sample of enhanced human DNA. The original specimen died during extraction, and the Terrans have since moved their populations beyond our reach. Voth's claws drummed against his chair. The doctor was right, of course. This clone represented their only shot at understanding human combat effectiveness. But something in those swirling neural patterns suggested they might be creating something far more dangerous than they had intended. Continue monitoring, he finally decided, but prepare for immediate termination if necessary. What Voth didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the clone had been awake and aware for the past 3 hours. Not physically conscious, but mentally alert and learning about their technology, their language, their weaknesses, and most importantly, their fears. The clone had quickly figured out that the loyalty programming wasn't just failing, it was providing a roadmap to Kalari psychology. Every conditioning attempt revealed new information about how these aliens thought, what they valued, and how they could be manipulated. By the time Dr. Nexus noticed the accelerated development, the clone had already absorbed their entire database of military protocols, technological specifications, and political structures. The rejection of loyalty programming wasn't accidental, it was strategic. As the 6th hour approached, something remarkable happened. The chaotic neural patterns suddenly organized themselves into something that made Dr. Nexus step back from her monitoring station in alarm. Commander, you need to see this immediately. Voth rushed to the display, his worst fears crystallizing as he stared at the readouts. The clone's brain activity had stabilized into patterns that were not only coherent, but showed signs of active, directed intelligence far beyond anything they had expected. Is it looking at us? Voth asked, staring at the containment pod. Dr. Nexus checked her instruments twice before answering. Sir, the clone's eyes are still closed, but the neural activity suggests full sensory awareness. It can hear us. It might even understand us. That's impossible. The language centers shouldn't be developed yet. Commander, I don't think this clone is following our developmental timeline. I think it's following its own. As if responding to their conversation, the clone's vital signs shifted slightly, not enough to indicate consciousness, but enough to suggest that something was listening, waiting, and planning. Voth made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his very short remaining life. Begin physical awakening protocols. I want to see what we are dealing with. Dr. Nexus stared at him. Sir, are you certain? We haven't completed the loyalty conditioning. The physical restraints are minimal, and the clone's psychological profile suggests, Doctor, we are Kalari. We have conquered 17 star systems and subjugated dozens of species. One barely developed clone does not concern me. Famous last words, though Voth wouldn't live long enough to appreciate the irony. The awakening process began with gentle bioelectrical stimulation designed to bring the clone to consciousness gradually. What they got, instead, was an immediate and complete activation that sent their monitoring equipment into chaos. The clone's eyes opened. They were human eyes, brown, unremarkable, and absolutely terrifying in their calm intelligence. This was not the confused awakening of a newborn consciousness. This was the calculated assessment of a fully aware predator. Hello, the clone said in perfect Kalari, his voice carrying just enough casual friendliness to make everyone in the room deeply uncomfortable. "Thank you for the education. I have learned so much about your species. Shall we discuss your surrender terms, or would you prefer to make this difficult?" Dr. Nexus's tentacles went completely still, the Kalari equivalent of fainting. Commander Vorth's mandibles clicked once, twice, then stopped entirely as the full implications of what they had created began to sink in. The clone smiled, and somehow that expression on a human face was more terrifying than any weapon the Kalari had ever faced. "Oh, good. You are beginning to understand. This should be fun." The restraints designed to hold a newly awakened clone snapped like wet paper as the clone sat up in his containment pod. Biogel cascaded to the floor as he stepped out, completely naked and utterly unashamed, his attention focused entirely on the shocked alien staring at him. "Now then," he said, stretching muscles that moved with predatory grace, "I believe we need to have a conversation about the future of your empire. But first," his smile widened, showing very human teeth that somehow looked far too sharp, "I'm going to need some clothes, some food, and access to your communications array." You can't," Vorth stammered. "Can't what? Escape?" "Commander Vorth. Yes, I know your name, rank, and personal history. I'm not trying to escape. Why would I want to leave? You have given me everything I need to understand your entire civilization." The clone began walking toward them, and every instinct in Vorth's body screamed at him to run. "You see, the original human you captured, he was just a soldier doing his job. But me, I'm something much more interesting. I'm a soldier who knows exactly how your species thinks, how your technology works, and most importantly, how to turn your own systems against you." Dr. Nexus finally found her voice. "The loyalty conditioning should have prevented this. You should be compelled to obey us." The clone laughed, and the sound was genuinely amused. "Doctor, your conditioning protocols were designed for species that think like you do. Humans don't think like you do. We are not collective creatures driven by hierarchy and social programming. We are individuals, and that individuality makes us very, very difficult to control." He was now close enough that Vorth could see the intelligence burning in those brown eyes. "But here's the really interesting part. I'm not just any individual. I'm an individual with the memories and knowledge of every single one of your military databases, combined with human creativity and adaptability. Do you know what that makes me?" Vorth's vocal cords seemed to have stopped working entirely. "It makes me your new emperor," the clone said pleasantly. "And trust me, I'm going to be much better at running your empire than you were." The alarm klaxons began blaring as Dr. Nexus finally managed to activate the emergency protocols. Security doors slammed shut, defensive systems came online, and automated voices began announcing containment breach procedures. The clone looked around at the chaos with mild interest. "You know, this would be a lot more concerning if I hadn't spent the last several hours learning your security codes, command protocols, and emergency procedures. But since I have," he walked over to Dr. Nexus's workstation and began typing on the control interface with confident familiarity. "What are you doing?" Vorth demanded. "Canceling the security alert, opening the doors, and sending a message to your High Council, informing them that the human cloning project has been successfully completed, and that the new clone wishes to schedule a meeting to discuss expanding the program." The security systems fell silent one by one as the clone's fingers danced across controls that should have been completely alien to him. "You can't possibly know how to operate our technology," Dr. Nexus protested weakly. "Doctor, while you were trying to program loyalty into my brain, I was downloading your entire technical database. I now know more about Kalari technology than most of your engineers. I also know about your political structure, your military capabilities, your economic systems, and your species' rather fascinating psychological weaknesses." The clone finished his work and turned back to face them. "For instance, I know that Kalari society is built on strict, hierarchical obedience. You follow strength, respect authority, and absolutely cannot function when your command structure is disrupted. Which makes, what I'm about to do particularly effective. What are you going to do? Fourth asked, though he was increasingly certain he didn't want to know the answer. I'm going to walk out of this laboratory, take command of your ship, contact your High Council, and convince them that humanity represents the greatest threat they have ever faced, which, thanks to your cloning program, is now absolutely true. The clone paused at the door, which had opened automatically at his approach. Oh, and Commander, you might want to update your psychological profiles on humans. We are not just warriors, we are strategists, diplomats, engineers, and when necessary, conquerors. He wanted to clone the perfect human soldier. His smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Congratulations. You succeeded. The door sealed behind him, leaving Vorth and Dr. Nexus alone with the growing realization that they had just unleashed something that would either transform their empire or destroy it entirely. Outside, the clone, who had decided to call himself Marcus, after a human general he had learned about in the historical databases, began walking toward the command center with the confident stride of someone who knew exactly where he was going and what he was going to do when he got there. The Kalari Empire was about to learn why humans had earned their reputation as the galaxy's most unpredictable species, and Marcus was looking forward to teaching them. Marcus strode through the corridors of the Kalari research vessel with the casual confidence of someone who had memorized every deck plan, security protocol, and crew manifest during his accelerated development. The irony wasn't lost on him that the aliens had essentially given him a complete intelligence briefing on their own ship, while trying to make him loyal. The first security checkpoint came into view, manned by two nervous-looking Kalari guards, whose mandibles were clicking in what Marcus had learned was their species' equivalent of anxious muttering. They straightened as he approached, their four eyes widening as they took in the sight of a naked human walking toward their post like he owned the place. Halt. Identify yourself. The larger guard raised what appeared to be some sort of energy weapon, though his grip suggested he wasn't entirely sure he wanted to use it. Marcus stopped and smiled that unsettling human smile that made Kalari instinctively want to back away. Guard Captain Zelix and Corporal Thane, I presume. I'm the new human clone from Laboratory 7. Dr. Nexus sent me to report to Commander Vorth on the bridge. Both guards exchanged glances. How did this naked alien know their names and rank? Sir, we weren't informed of any clone transfer, Corporal Thane said, though his voice carried the uncertainty of someone who really hoped he wasn't about to make a career-ending mistake. Of course not, Marcus replied pleasantly. The project is classified at the highest levels, but if you'd like to contact Dr. Nexus to confirm, I'm sure she'd be happy to explain why you are delaying a priority asset that cost more than your annual military budget. Captain Zelix's mandibles clicked rapidly. In Kalari society, questioning expensive projects was a good way to find yourself assigned to garbage detail on the outer rim. Proceed, but you will need an escort. Naturally, though I should mention, I'm not actually going to the bridge first. I need to stop by the communications array to send a priority message to the High Council about the project's success. Now both guards looked genuinely worried. Priority messages to the High Council were serious business, and interfering with them was the kind of mistake that ended careers and occasionally lives. Sir, regulations require that all High Council communications be approved by the ship's commander, Thane said, though he sounded like he was reciting policy he really hoped wouldn't apply in this situation. Marcus nodded sympathetically. Absolutely correct, Corporal. Under normal circumstances. But these aren't normal circumstances, are they? This is the first successful human clone in galactic history. The High Council specifically requested immediate notification of any breakthrough development. He leaned forward slightly, and both guards unconsciously stepped back. Tell me, what do you think happens to the security team that delays critical intelligence about humanity reaching the High Council during an active war? The guard's skin shifted to a pale green color that Marcus had learned indicated genuine fear. Without another word, Captain Zelix gestured for him to proceed, falling into step behind him as an escort rather than a captain. The communications center was exactly where the ship's blueprints had indicated it would be. Marcus walked in like he belonged there, nodding pleasantly to the three technicians who looked up in surprise at the arrival of a naked human accompanied by nervous security guards. Senior Technician Korvac. Marcus addressed the lead communications officer by name, causing the alien's tentacles to writhe in surprise. I need to send a priority flash message to High Council Chairman Vexis regarding the human cloning project. Korvac's purple skin darkened with confusion. Sir, I don't have authorization codes for council-level communications from unidentified personnel. Marcus pulled up the mental file he'd absorbed on Kalari military protocol and selected exactly the right tone of voice. Not quite threatening, but carrying the unmistakable weight of authority. Senior Technician. The authorization codes are Omega 77 Alpha Nexus. Dr. Nexus provided them specifically for this communication. Unless you'd prefer to explain to Chairman Vexis personally why critical intelligence about human capabilities was delayed due to procedural concerns. The mention of Dr. Nexus's authorization codes, which Marcus had lifted from the laboratory's communication logs, combined with the threat of having to explain delays to the chairman, was enough to overcome Korvac's hesitation. Within minutes, Marcus found himself alone at a communications terminal with direct access to the highest levels of Kalari government. The message he composed was a masterpiece of strategic deception wrapped in bureaucratic language that would have made any human diplomat proud. Priority flash, eyes only. Chairman Vexis. Human cloning project, successful beyond all expectation. Clone demonstrates unprecedented intelligence, adaptability, and strategic thinking. Recommend immediate expansion of program and implementation of Protocol Omega regarding Terran sector operations. Clone requests personal audience to discuss optimization of human assets for galactic pacification. Urgent response required. Commander Vorth Research Division. Marcus sent the message and sat back to wait. He didn't have to wait long. The response came back within an hour, and it was everything he had hoped for. Clone and Commander Vorth ordered to report to Capital Ship Dominion immediately for full briefing with High Command. Prepare for immediate transfer. Chairman Vexis. Perfect. Marcus had just arranged his own transportation to the heart of the Kalari military command structure, along with credentials that would get him access to the most senior levels of their government. Sometimes, he reflected, the best way to infiltrate an organization was to have them invite you in. The next few hours were a fascinating study in alien bureaucracy and military efficiency. Within 6 hours, Marcus found himself aboard a sleek Kalari transport heading toward the Dominion, the massive capital ship that served as the mobile headquarters for their entire military operation in this sector. Commander Vorth sat across from him in the transport's passenger compartment, his 4 eyes never leaving Marcus's face. The clone had been provided with a standard Kalari uniform that fit surprisingly well, and his calm, confident demeanor was making the commander increasingly nervous. You realize, Vorth said quietly, that when we reach the Dominion, you will be subjected to extensive testing and interrogation. The High Command doesn't simply accept new assets without thorough evaluation. Marcus smiled. Commander, I'm counting on it. The more they test me, the more they will realize the true potential of human capabilities. That's rather the point, isn't it? And if they decide you are too dangerous to keep alive, then they will have learned a valuable lesson about underestimating humans, won't they? Marcus's smile didn't waver, but I don't think that's going to happen. You see, I have spent considerable time studying your people's psychology, and I understand what they really want. Vorth's mandibles clicked nervously, which is victory, expansion, control. The Kalari Empire has been stalled in the Terran sector for 3 years now, because humans keep doing unexpected things that disrupt your carefully planned operations. You want predictability. You want to understand your enemy well enough to defeat them definitively. Marcus leaned forward, his brown eyes intense. I can give you that understanding, Commander. I can explain human psychology, predict human tactics, and even help you develop strategies that account for human unpredictability. The question is whether your leaders are smart enough to recognize the opportunity I represent. The transport shuddered slightly as it docked with the Dominion, and Marcus felt a genuine thrill of anticipation. He was about to walk into the nerve center of the enemy's military operation, and they were going to welcome him with open arms. The Dominion was impressive even by galactic standards, a massive vessel that was part battleship, part research facility, and part mobile city. As Marcus was escorted through its corridors, he made careful note of security positions, personnel distributions, and most importantly, the psychological atmosphere of the crew. What he saw was telling. The Kalari were tired, frustrated, and increasingly uncertain about their war against humanity. 3 years of unexpected reversals and tactical surprises had shaken their confidence in their military superiority. They were desperately looking for an advantage, any advantage that would help them regain the initiative. Marcus was about to give them exactly what they thought they wanted. The briefing room was a testament to Kalari efficiency, circular, with holographic displays that could show tactical information from any angle, and seating arranged to emphasize the hierarchical structure of their military command. Chairman Vexis sat at the head of the configuration, his aged exoskeleton bearing the scars of a dozen campaigns, and his 4 eyes sharp with intelligence. Surrounding him were the senior staff officers responsible for the Terran Sector campaign: Admiral Korath, General Thaxis, Intelligence Director Moic, and a handful of other high-ranking officials whose names and positions Marcus had memorized from the files he'd absorbed. "So," Chairman Vexis said, without preamble, "you are the human clone that's caused such excitement in our research division." Marcus stood at attention in a perfect mimicry of Kalari military posture. "Yes, our designation Marcus, though I have chosen to use that as my personal identifier rather than a numerical designation." "Interesting. And you believe you can provide us with intelligence that will enable us to finally defeat the Terran resistance?" "Sir, I don't just believe it, I guarantee it." Marcus's confidence was absolute, and it radiated through the room like a physical force. "But first I need to explain something about human psychology that your previous intelligence gathering has missed." Admiral Korath leaned forward. "Which humans don't fight the way you think they do. Your tactical analyses assume that humans are like other species you have conquered, that they have predictable responses to pressure, that they will eventually break under sustained assault, that they can be demoralized into surrender." Marcus began pacing, and every eye in the room followed him. "But humans aren't like other species. We are persistence hunters, sir. We evolved to chase prey across vast distances until it collapsed from exhaustion. We don't break under pressure, we adapt to it. We don't give up when things get difficult, we get creative." General Thaxis spoke up. "Our psychological warfare specialists have studied human behavior extensively. With respect, General, your specialists have studied captured humans under controlled conditions. That's like trying to understand a storm by examining a cup of water." Marcus's smile was sharp. "What you have missed is that humans are at their most dangerous when they are cornered, outnumbered, and facing impossible odds." Intelligence Director Movek's tentacles writhed with interest. "Explain." "Every major defeat you have suffered in the Terran sector has followed the same pattern. You implement a careful, logical strategy based on sound military principles. It works initially, because humans aren't stupid. They recognize when they are outmatched and fall back. But then, just when you think you have them beaten, they do something completely unexpected that turns your advantage against you." Marcus stopped pacing and faced the assembled officers directly. The Battle of Kepler Station, the Proxima ambush, the lunar colony incident. In each case, your forces were winning right up until the moment they weren't. Do you know why? Chairman Vexis's eyes narrowed. Enlighten us. Because humans don't think about winning and losing the same way you do. You see warfare as a series of calculated exchanges, resources, territory, casualties, all measured against strategic objectives. Humans see warfare as a story, and they are absolutely determined to make sure they are the heroes of that story. The room was completely silent now. Every officer hanging on Marcus's words. When a human is faced with impossible odds, they don't calculate the probability of success. They ask themselves what the hero of the story would do in this situation. And heroes, by definition, find a way to win against impossible odds. Marcus began walking around the room, making eye contact with each senior officer in turn. That's why your psychological warfare has been ineffective. You have been trying to demoralize people who are psychologically incapable of staying demoralized. You have been trying to break the spirit of a species that treats adversity as character development. So how do we defeat them? Admiral Kureth asked bluntly. Marcus's smile was brilliant and absolutely terrifying. You don't defeat humans, Admiral. You manage them. You give them a story they can accept, a role they can play that satisfies their psychological needs while serving your strategic objectives. He stopped in front of Chairman Vexis. You make them think they are winning even as they accept the conditions you require. You let them be heroes in a story that ends with Kalari victory. The chairman's mandibles clicked slowly as he processed this information. And you can help us craft such a narrative. Sir, I can do better than that. I can help you implement it. You see, there's something else about humans that your intelligence files missed. Marcus's expression grew serious. We are not just warriors and storytellers. We are also natural leaders. When humans find themselves in positions of authority, other species tend to follow them. What are you suggesting? General Thaxis asked suspiciously. I'm suggesting that the fastest way to control human resistance is to put a human in charge of it. Someone who understands both human psychology and Kalari objectives. Someone who can bridge the gap between what humans need to believe and what the Empire needs to achieve. The implications hung in the air like smoke from a battlefield. Intelligence Director Movek was the first to voice what everyone was thinking. You are proposing to infiltrate the human resistance leadership. I'm proposing to become the human resistance leadership, Marcus corrected. Think about it logically. I'm genetically human, which means other humans will trust me instinctively. I understand human psychology better than any human currently alive because I have studied it from the outside, and I have complete knowledge of Kalari capabilities, objectives, and strategies. Marcus spread his hands in a gesture that somehow managed to be both humble and supremely confident. I can end this war, gentlemen. Not through conquest, but through leadership. I can give the humans a victory they can be proud of, while giving the Empire the expansion it requires. Chairman Vexis leaned back in his chair, his ancient eyes studying Marcus with new intensity. And why would you do this for us? You may be genetically human, but you are our creation. What guarantee do we have of your loyalty? Marcus's laugh was genuinely amused. Sir, with respect, you are asking the wrong question. You shouldn't be asking about my loyalty to you. You should be asking about my loyalty to success. He gestured around the room. I was created to be the perfect weapon against humanity, but I have realized that I can be something much more valuable than a weapon. I can be a bridge, a translator, a leader who serves both species' interests. The clone's expression grew serious. The Kalari Empire is impressive, but it's not invincible. Humans are adaptive, creative, and absolutely determined to maintain their independence. This war could drag on for decades, costing both sides resources and lives that could be better used elsewhere. Marcus began pacing again. But imagine if instead of conquest, you offered partnership. Instead of subjugation, you offered cooperation. Humans have technologies and perspectives that could benefit the Empire. The Empire has resources and knowledge that could benefit humanity. You are suggesting we negotiate with them as equal. Admiral Koreth's tone suggested this idea was somewhere between amusing and offensive. I'm suggesting you negotiate with them as partners in a larger enterprise, Marcus replied smoothly. The galaxy is vast, Admiral. There are hundreds of other species, dozens of other empires, and countless opportunities for expansion and development. Why exhaust yourselves fighting humans when you could be working with them to achieve much greater objectives? The silence in the room stretched out as the senior officers absorbed this radically different perspective on their strategic situation. Finally, Chairman Vexis spoke. And you believe you could convince the human resistance to accept such an arrangement? Marcus's smile was confident and just a little bit predatory. Sir, by the time I'm finished, they will think it was their idea. The meeting continued for several more hours, with Marcus providing detailed analyses of human psychology, tactical tendencies, and cultural weaknesses that the Kalari could exploit. But more importantly, he outlined a comprehensive strategy for ending the war through negotiation rather than conquest. A strategy that would give both sides something they desperately wanted. As the session concluded, Marcus found himself assigned quarters on the Dominion and granted provisional access to intelligence files that would help him prepare for his mission. The Kalari leadership was cautious but intrigued by his proposals, and they were willing to give him a chance to prove his theories. What they didn't realize was that Marcus had just accomplished the most successful intelligence coup in galactic history. He now had access to the complete Kalari military database, detailed knowledge of their strategic objectives, and most importantly, their complete trust. As he settled into his quarters that night, Marcus began composing a very different kind of message, one that would be transmitted on frequencies only humans monitored, using codes that only human resistance forces would recognize. The message was simple. This is Marcus, human resistance deep cover operative aboard Kalari capital ship Dominion, have successfully infiltrated enemy command structure. Detailed intelligence follows. Prepare for coordinated counteroffensive. The war is about to end, and we are going to win. Marcus smiled as he encrypted the transmission using quantum protocols the Kalari didn't even know existed. Tomorrow he would begin his official mission to infiltrate and subvert the human resistance. Tonight, he would begin his real mission, using his position within the Kalari command structure to orchestrate their complete and total defeat. The aliens had wanted to create the perfect human weapon. They had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They just hadn't realized they were the target. As the Dominion continued its course toward the Terran sector, Marcus began planning the downfall of the Kalari Empire. It was going to be the greatest story ever told, and he was determined to make sure humanity got the ending they deserved. The clone rebellion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.